Garfield in Paradise is a 1986 animated short film. This is directed by Phil Roman. It's written by Jim Davis, and we have a voice cast including Lorenzo Music as Garfield and Thom Hughes as John. And while I do like Garfield, and I was looking forward to this, I didn't really enjoy this one. It got off to a relatively strong start with Garfield and John on the plane, but once we kind of got to the destination and once the narrative started to kick in, I just found that it wasn't that interesting. And I think for me, and I will talk about the narrative in a moment, but I think for me there are two reasons for that. The first is that the narrative just wasn't that fascinating. I didn't find the specific events to be that engaging. But I also didn't find the animation to be very fun either. There's nothing wrong with the animation. Most certainly it's not badly animated. But at the same time, I didn't find it to be as visually engaging as some other Garfield cartoons. So for me, it was fine, but I didn't love it. John and Garfield are going to Paradise World, which is a very budget, run-down replacement for Hawaii, because obviously Hawaii is very expensive. I'm assuming Hawaii is expensive. More expensive than Paradise World. And Garfield's obviously having a grumble about this, but when they get there, they have the opportunity to help some people out with a problem with a volcano and other things that are happening. I will say they made great use of the location. It is one of those narratives that wouldn't work if it was set anywhere else, or at least nowhere else similar. So I do think, credit where it's due, they made a good use of the actual Paradise World and the environment, and I think that that's definitely something that's worth mentioning. However, I still found the specifics to just be not very fun at all, and we do meet quite a lot of characters. Again, credit where it's due. I think they brought in a lot of characters, a lot of different personalities, so even when the narrative itself was, for me, kind of dull, there were still parts of it that were relatively interesting. Not interesting enough for me to come away from it feeling like I really enjoyed it, but interesting enough that I was not completely bored. And as I mentioned, the animation is fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I just didn't find it to be as fun and engaging. The environment looked fine. It looked like what I kind of expected. But again, nothing that really stood out to me as being that great. So when the narrative's lacking, normally I would at least have the fun animation. And vice versa. If the animation's not that interesting, maybe we can fall back on something fun that's happening in the narrative. But because both the animation and the narrative are, in my opinion, both pretty mediocre, it meant that it was a watchable cartoon, but I didn't enjoy it. I do like Garfield grumbling. I do relate to Garfield in a lot of ways, particularly when he's not happy about something. But beyond that, I didn't get much out of it. If you're a Garfield fan, I'd say it might be worth checking out. In fact, it probably is worth checking out. Everything works well enough. The narrative flows well, the animation is fine, the characters are fine, the voice acting is obviously not a problem at all. So it is an okay cartoon. I didn't love it. I wouldn't watch it again. I wasn't completely bored when watching it, but I didn't come away from it feeling very satisfied.